Today we're going to talk about breeder bins. I've got one that I've just created. I'm going to be creating another one today, and the reason is for exactly what it sounds like, is to breed your worms. There's a couple reasons you might want to do that. Maybe you want to sell the worms. A lot of people would do that. The other reason is you want to increase your colony. That's what I want to do. I need to increase my colony for a few different reasons, not just for my vermicomposting process, but I also want to add some of these worms outside into my other composting areas. So outside of my worm composting. And if I can have excess worms to do that, then fantastic. Now I'm in the UK, so we do have a few challenges, especially with the weather. It can get pretty cold, especially this time of year. It is October and the temperatures are dipping. Worms like to be at around 20 degrees Celsius, especially the red wigglers that I have. I have a mix, mainly red wigglers, but also have some European night crawlers and a couple others. But they all like it to be a bit warmer. When it is colder, most of the time they will survive. If they don't, they will be laying eggs, so you'll be able to keep that colony going. That's a fantastic thing. I'll take a quick look at this breeder bin first before we start the new one. Let's see how we're doing in here. Got some worms going down there. I've just thrown some leaves on. I probably should have blended those up, made them a bit smaller, but they're okay. So yeah, I've got a few worms over there. Don't want to disrupt them too much. But yeah, this is a basic breeder bin, and essentially what I'm doing to keep this warm, I have a very cheap thermostat here, which I've stuck into the soil, and connected to that is a soil heating cable, and that's just running through here. Again, very inexpensive, and it obviously can be reused. So let's show you how I set that up in the new bin over here. Just ignore the pink. I've just been mixing up some worm chow. Go check out that video. I'll link it down below. But the red is beetroot. Firstly, I must say I am really jealous of the guys in the US. The bins that they have, which I try to replicate a little bit here, are accessible and easy to get hold of in pretty much most Home Depots and things like that. In the UK, unfortunately, we can't get them. They're kind of this size, and they are for, I guess, mixing cement and that sort of thing. Plasterer's tub. They have a nice slope down the sides, which I think is quite nice for picking through the worms and processing. This here obviously has corners, so not the best, but I was quite pleased that I actually could find these, and they weren't too expensive. I'll leave a link for them down below, but I've got like 4 of them. They're great for mixing. They're also great for doing exactly what I'm going to be doing today. So the warming cable that I'm using, a few of them lying out, is essentially just this. You don't need a high-powered one. You just need something like that. I think this is 20 watts, so it doesn't use a lot of power. And because of the thermal mass of the soil and the bedding that you're creating, the cable doesn't have to work too hard once it gets to temperature. We'll see how it works in the really, really cold temperatures that we get in the UK. But for now, I mean, that's pretty much it. You're going to just coil this around inside the tub once the bedding's in there, and then plug it in to a thermostat just to keep it at the temperature you want to keep it at. Otherwise, you just plug it in and let it run the whole time. It's really up to you, but it does the job. So this one, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a different bedding. In the other tub that I showed you earlier, I have a mix of coco coir and, well, actually here I have some of that coco coir. Some coco coir here, which I'll put a little bit in here, but I'm not going to actually soak it right now. What I am going to do is just allow it to sit in the bottom so that it can absorb any excess moisture. Even though with a breeder bin you are looking for quite a lot of moisture in comparison to a normal vermicomposting bin, it helps them to reproduce quite quickly. But this here, because of how I'm going to wet it, it'd be nice to have some of this down there to just absorb any excess, so we're not sitting there in a flood. Because I'm not creating holes in this, I'm not letting this drain at the bottom, so any excess moisture is going to sit down the bottom there. And coco coir is relatively cheap, and it's renewable, so it's a fantastic option. And yeah, it does really absorb a lot of moisture, and the worms love it for bedding. You can use this totally just this for bedding if you want. Works great. But I've got a new toy and it's a shredder that allows me to do micro shredding of cardboard. That stuff is just wonderful. I will do a video review on the shredder. Definitely is something I recommend. I've been so happy with it. It goes through cardboard like nobody's business, and it can go through even really thick cardboard. So let's get some in there. The other benefit of doing this is instead of using cocoa coir, you'd have to wait for it to absorb that moisture. It does take quite a while. You don't really need to wait too much with the cardboard. You just wet it and let it soak. Just do a layer at a time. I'll do another layer on top of this. I'm just going to get some water. The water I'm using is runoff from the roof, so I collect it in water butts or water containers. And that's a good thing because it has a lot of microbes and stuff in there that's going to help with the worms. You don't want to use tap water, especially tap water that has a lot of chlorine in. Not great for the worms. But if you have to, it's not a problem. You're just going to need to let it gas off before you allow the worms to get into it. You can see the amount of moisture down there. Or moisture, it's literally water. Let me get a light over here so you can see what's going on. It's better. So if you are just using cocoa coir here instead of cardboard like I am, you're going to need warm water, not cold water like I just added. You're going to need warm water to help it get absorbed better, or quicker at least. Okay, let's add some more cardboard. Always satisfying digging in these bins. So you're aiming for this. I mean, I'm not too fussed right now because I have got the cocoa coir in here, so it's going to help get any excess in there. But you can see there, that's too wet. If all you're using was cardboard, what you'd want is that you could barely get a drop out of there. So way too much in there. But like I said, we've got cocoa coir in there, so it'll absorb any excess that's going to appear. And the other thing to keep in mind, because we are using heating here with these cables, that's also going to help that moisture be removed. So you're going to have to make sure that the moisture level remains like that. Keep checking it every now and then to make sure that it's not drying out too much. So this is the time we're going to layer on this. So the heating part of the cable, if you are buying this cable, which I'll link down below, but if you are buying this cable, the heating element is obviously the green part. That there, not so much, but put that like that anyway. And let's try and position this. Keep that over there. Try not to let them cross over each other. Not ideal, but that's fine. I'm going to add another layer of cardboard here just to keep this all down. So to do that, I'm just going to wet it in the bucket. We'll get a little bit more in there. Get that wet down. So there, if you're wanting to measure, I would say that is about 3 inches in depth, or what's 3 inches? About 7 or 8 centimeters, I guess. So yeah, you don't need it too deep, but that is looking good. There's one other step we need to take here, and that is to get the thermostat. Actually, just had a thought. I don't need to have a second thermometer here, so we have that one up there. What I can do, I'm just gonna have to think about how I do this. So because he's only pulling 20 watts, I can have a few of them plugged in over here. So instead of that there, okay, so that's going to go in there. So we're just going to have to measure the temperature in one bin. Obviously, I'm going to be keeping the measurement on the bin that I already have this in, because as you can see, that's 20 degrees Celsius in the bin. Outside, it's about 10 degrees Celsius, but it can maintain 20 degrees easy. I've got it coming on at 19 degrees, turning off at 21, so it maintains kind of in that ballpark. So if I then take this other bin, that one over there, take this bin and stick it over here. So it's going to take a while for this to get up to the same temperature as that, but I don't think that's too much of an issue. But yeah, we have that plugged in now up on that multi-adapter that's plugged into here. So when this thing, which is measuring the temperature in the first bin, so it's measuring temperature in here, right now it's off, but when it gets below 19 degrees, then they'll both turn on. So obviously that means that this bin is going to take a little while before I get it up to the temperature I want it at. That's fine. Okay, what I'm going to do, so here's my worms, and yeah, I'll wash my hands later anyway, but I've pulled out some worms from my other bin. You can see there we have some beautiful worms. Look at those guys. But these are going to go into this. Right now that's quite cold, so I'm just going to put that there for now, and what I'll do is I will empty them in once this comes up to temperature a little bit better, and we'll do the next step at that point. It's been a good few hours now, and I think this is warm enough. I actually just plugged it in directly. I didn't even use the thermostat, just so I can get this up to temperature, and yeah, I think we're ready to go. Let's take these and get them in here. Their new home. Oh, we've got lots of worms here. So in case you weren't aware of what a breeder bin actually is, it's essentially just a way to breed your worms, but the whole concept of it is you're creating a lot of space here for these worms. So you're creating a nice environment. They're going to lay loads and loads of eggs. Within about 3-4 weeks, we should be able to separate all these worms out of here and get all the cocoons, place those in another bin, get those to hatch, and start the process again. So it should encourage them to do some breeding. But look at those worms. It won't take long, they'll settle down into the new bedding. What I'm going to do, because this is quite dry, I left it out to dry quite a bit, but I'm going to wet it down just a bit. Before I do that though, I'm going to add some of my worm chow. So let me just add this. Not going to add a whole bunch, but these guys haven't been eating for a little while. So we're just going to take a quarter spoon, and we're just going to do it across the one side. Yeah, I know. You can see the worms are not happy about that. Let me wet them down. They'll like it much better. They don't like all the dryness there. And then we're going to cover this over and it should be set. I think we're good there. Don't want to feed them too much when we start this off. So this here is just some compostable material. Just going to cover them over. Use cardboard for this, or well, newspaper is what I'm going to be using. I'll just wait to get a whole bunch of newspaper. But there we go. Just cover that over. Wet this down because this is dry. Go. We'll come and check on that tomorrow and see how we're doing, but that's essentially getting that breeder bin ready. I'll update you guys in about 2 or 3 weeks time, maybe a little bit longer, depends on the weather really, how quickly these bins actually process, because it is getting colder now, and so far so good with these heating cables. But when it gets really, really cold, I think it'll be a little bit more of a challenge to maintain that 20 degrees. But we'll let you know, learn with me while we try this out. I've never done this in winter. I've done it in summer a few times, but winter, a bit more of a challenge. But I'd like to get a head start on spring. Thank you so much for watching. Please click that subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this. And thank you for joining me in this one. It's pitch black outside. I need to get myself out of here and get my dinner ready. But thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you very, very soon.